Hi, I'm Lindsay.
Hi, I'm Christy, and we work with Globe International.
Working with missionaries, we hear stories of the struggles, the humor, God's goodness, and a little side of crazy.
Hey, that's who we are.
This is Crazy Missionary Stories.
Welcome back to part 2 of Geof and Marion Gunton. Geof and Marion are with Simply Mobilizing. Join us as we enjoy more of their crazy missionary stories.
Well, I would love to ask if you guys have any crazy stories, because the title of this podcast is Crazy Missionary Stories, and I'm sure you've got a couple. So would you mind sharing a story or two with us?
Well, yeah, it's just great sharing this time together. And as we think about sharing the time together, I think of during my time in Papua New Guinea, I learned to share a lot of things.
Oh,
and
here we go.
I was just sharing with these guys earlier that one of the things I learnt to share was my toothbrush, and I didn't organise that. It was just a case of I regularly had a dozen Papua New Guinea friends would be over at my place for the night, would have dinner together, would have the night together, and most of the time they'd sleep on the floor of. I put down mattresses and they slept on the floor of my place, and it was just like having a youth group, but just a full night of just having wonderful time together. And we did all sorts of things. Sometimes we studied God's word, and other times we did knee wrestling. So the rule was we had to be on our knees and we wrestled. But one of the things I discovered was that any time that any of my friends needed to use the bathroom, they would visit the bathroom, and while they're there, they would clean their teeth using my toothbrush. It was probably about 18 months afterwards that I suddenly realised why my toothbrush always seemed to be wetter than I imagined.
So they were using that toothbrush just on their teeth, right? Nothing else.
That's right, just on their tooth, yes. But I wasn't surprised, because by then I'd learnt that you can share a piece of gum. One of my first memories of Papua New Guinea was seeing these 5 boys lined up in a row, and the first one finished his chewing his gum. He passed it to the next one. He had a chew. When he had enough, he passed it to the next one, and this gum satisfied all 5 of those guys. And I learnt that was very common. You share.
Share everything.
Papua New Guinea is all about sharing.
Well, that's nice. I'm going to remember to not be at the end of the line.
So that's a funny story. You got another funny story?
You better tell the one about the chicken.
Oh, chicken stories are always great. Yeah.
The wife of our of the supermarket manager. Now, when I say supermarket, don't think of US supermarkets. Think of just sort of a little convenience store, but in a big shed. Anyway, so the wife of the manager, she was heading out one day as her house help arrived, and anyway, so she just exchanged a few words as she was leaving. She just said, "There's a chook." Now, that needs interpretation. A chook is the Australian way to say a chicken. So, yep, that's right. We say chook. So she just explained, "There's a chicken in the laundry tub. Please pluck it and put it in the fridge." She came about later that afternoon, and she's going about her duties. At one point, she opened the fridge door, and as she did so, she heard this clack. And she looks down, and she finds this chicken completely plucked, still alive, freezing,
no feathers,
cold in this. It just that is funny enough. But you've also got to think of it from the perspective of the house helper. She would have got home to her village that afternoon, and she would have said, "These crazy white skins, such and such and such. She told me to pluck the pluck the chicken without killing it. It just, these whiteskins are crazy.
Poor chicken.
I can remember one time I wrote a letter back to my youth group, and I just documented my day, and it started before 6 o'clock when I got up and I went to the market and bought a chicken, and I bought some potatoes, and I just documented a live chicken. So yep. So I just documented what I did that day, what was involved in the day, and that night I sat down to a chicken and fries, and I enjoyed that for my dinner, and I sent it off to the youth group, and I have never had such a bigger response from almost everyone in the youth group. Sent me a letter, and so many of them said they're never going to complain about slow service at fast food joints again. It just gave them a completely different perspective when you actually have to kill a be able to enjoy kill a chicken in order to be able to enjoy something that we consider to be very simple, chicken and chips. So it's chicken and fries, sorry.
I'm just curious, since we've got these names for the chickens, and that's a chook. It's a chook. And what does a rooster do? What does a rooster say in Australian English? Because here it's cock-a-doodle-doo.
I think it says the same in Australia.
Oh, really?
So they talk the same language.
Oh, no.
There's no language barrier.
Because in Spanish, in our places, it's kee-kitty-kee.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's the same in both.
It's the
In
same.
English, it's the same across the board,
Yeah.
huh? Okay. I'm just wondering. Anything else in Australian that would be a lot different, some of the language barriers for us in the United States?
Yes, I think of a conversation that we had. We had a young guy from the US was staying with us in Australia, and it just happened that this one particular night we've got the kids had their youth leader also joining us for dinner, and we were having a lovely time. And during the conversation, I just shared a story about a time that I had been preaching in fluorescent shorts, and the feedback that I got on that occasion was, "Please, can you speak louder? We couldn't hear you over the loudness of your shorts." And anyway, but Chris comes from a fairly conservative Pentecostal background, where if he's thinking about preaching in a casual manner, then he will take his tie off. And so he's wrestling with the idea of Geof preaching in shorts, let alone fluorescent shorts. Then, to add insult to injury, the youth, Chris just made a comment about, what, do you guys preach in shorts? And so he asked the question, and the youth leader, Jared, just came straight back and said, "Oh, yes, in Australia, it's very common for young guys to preach in T-shirt and thongs."
Oh, no.
Now, in Australia, thongs are footwear.
Oh, yeah, that wasn't the visual that I had.
In the United States, thongs are very different.
Yes.
And Chris was having enough challenge wrestling with me preaching in shorts, let alone preaching without shorts. But be assured that that young guys always preach in shorts or long trousers. So, in Australia.
That's good to know. Yeah. Language, even country to country. Right?
Oh, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
that's right.
You guys have traveled all over the world.
That's right. This year and last year?
Yeah, all the time, huh? I'm just curious, what would be, maybe not necessarily a crazy story, but what would be something that maybe you learned or just an experience you had there that you just thought, this is way out of my culture. This is not anything that I am at all used to.
in Papua New Guinea, I very much viewed youth ministry like using my worldview, my understanding from Australia, and youth ministry is very much about focusing on an individual and helping an individual to grow. One of the biggest mistakes that I made in Papua New Guinea was that I forgot that young people are part of a community, and you don't take an individual on a discipleship journey, you take a group. And so I got myself into a lot of hot water when I encouraged one of a group of young people to study the Bible, and when they eventually confronted their pastor and said, "Well, the Bible actually teaches. Geof has shown us that the Bible teaches us about such and such," and if I had have included the pastor or included some older, more mature folk in the discovery process, it would have been a very, very different outcome. And I think that's one of the things that I had to learn the hard way. And you know, we do tend to have a very individualistic mindset, and we forget that that people in other cultures are not necessarily growing as individuals. They grow as individuals in community, and that's something that we've lost in our Western, particularly in our Western cultures, and it's something that is very valuable and that we can actually learn a lot from as we think about discipling others in community rather than as individuals.
That's good. I need to learn how to share my toothbrush more often. Yeah, in community. Or maybe we can just buy a lot of toothbrushes. Will that work?
There's different ways of doing it. When I eventually realised what had happened, I learnt to keep toothbrushes in the bathroom, and then I would hide one in my bedroom.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Well, you guys are involved with mobilization on a worldwide scale. If you were able to talk to the church today, from this moment right here, what would you say to the local church?
To the local church, the church exists because God is on mission. And when we capture that, we are liberated when we actually find ways to serve God through our work, through our daily living, through our interaction with people. You know, for Marion and I, we do a lot more travel than most people, and for the years that I was making regular trips to Latin America, I was doing a lot of those trips by myself. And whenever I was on a flight and someone would sit down beside me, I'd always think and I'd pray, Lord, help me to be able to connect with this person in some way. And it's amazing the number of doors that God opened, and just the natural conversations that would flow in those contexts. Sometimes it might be a short interaction, and then it may be obvious that person just needs time to sleep and to be by themselves. Other times, like one time I flew from Chile back to Australia. It was a 16-hour flight, and myself and this guy next to me just never stopped talking. We were talking the entire flight, and it was one of the most enjoyable long flights that I've ever had. It's just, God gives opportunities to interact with people in ways that we don't necessarily expect, but it's a blessing just to be able to talk naturally about what God is doing around the world, in and through our lives, and and it's just every single one of us have got the opportunity of being able to impact others just by sharing what God is doing
That's good.
in and through us.
That's great.
And that applies even in the home, where he might have been out travelling and going and doing the work out there. But I was at home with the 2 children, and I had that responsibility as well. And I think for us mums and dads even, we need to be intentional with our children, because they're the next generation and we need to be discipling them. And we can do that right in the home. We don't have to leave that to the church. And so, you know, it was very much a part of what I was doing. Being at home was inputting into my children and sharing what Dad's doing, and they understood what Dad was doing. So that made a big difference.
It does, yeah. You said something earlier. You said God is on mission. We always, a lot of times we say we're on mission, but there's a little bit of difference in that too, right?
Ah, there is. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's really, as we move forward, is about discovering what is God doing around us. What is God doing in the lives of people around us? Because He's at work in ways that we can't even see. And so it's a matter of asking God to show us when it's a divine opportunity, when has He brought us in contact with someone that we can just give a word of encouragement. I think of actually Baltimore Airport. I was there waiting for a flight on one occasion, and it turned out that I was waiting at the wrong gate. But it also happened that there was a guy who had just committed himself to the Lord that week. He was also waiting at the wrong gate. And here we were, the 2 of us were waiting at the same airport in the same wrong gate at the same time. And it's, sometimes we talk about being in the right place at the right time. Well, this was a case of being in the wrong place at the right time. And it's capturing those moments and making sure that we are shining God's light and just sharing naturally what about God, and not hiding, but just sharing about what He's doing and what God is doing in our lives.
That's great. Not just discovering our purpose, but seeing what God is doing, what's His purpose, and how can I be a part of it. Yeah, that's great.
It's about working with God, not for Him, but we're working alongside with Him in what He's doing.
One of the projects that we're working on in Simply Mobilising, at this stage, it's very much Max, our international director, is the one that's taking us on a journey of understanding that the Bible can be understood as a story. Starting with Genesis 1 and 2, where God created the world, and He's taking us right through to Revelation 21, 22. And when we can capture, here's this story about God on mission, we realise, God is on mission. He's going from Genesis right through to Revelation. But the exciting thing is that it's not something that He's just doing by Himself, but rather He needs our part. He needs humans to step forward and work with Him on taking us from Genesis through to Revelation.
Great. Yeah. That's another, that's online also, right? That is the One
Story Bible. It's now 12-minute mobiology. We've limited at the moment to just to existing mobilizers.
Okay.
But the plan is that it will be available as the story of the Bible eventually, that it will be available to share in churches.
That's good. Good.
So you as an organization, Simply Mobilizing, you have a lot of tools that the church can use to share about God's heart, essentially. Can you talk just briefly about what's available and how people could find that?
So there's Empowered to Influence is a course that can be run in life groups, in home groups, Bible studies in a church. And it's understanding that God has placed us in our vocations for a reason, and that we have the opportunity of loving those around us. But we need to actually understand there's 7 paradigms that are a key to making a difference in our workplaces, in our neighbourhoods, in our schools, wherever we spend most of our time, and it's great to just have that course, the Empowered to Influence, to be able to help lead us in that way. The Unfinished Story is another course that can be used in small groups in Bible studies, and that's understanding God's heart for all nations. So it's really got a cross-cultural component, recognizing that until all nations, all people groups are represented in God's kingdom, there is still people groups to be introduced to God and be able to become part of His family. And so that's a great. It's about 1 hour, 1 to 1.5 hour
I've taken it. It's
sessions.
awesome.
It is. It's wonderful. So yep, we've got a variation of that which is distinctly geared to young people, and it's the Unfinished Story for youth. And even though it's written and geared for youth, we love it, and we think oh, it's great for older folk to be able to
Older
do it
young
as
people.
well. Yeah. So so anyone youth at heart. So so from the perspective of eternity, we're all young. So so that's a great course that covers the same themes as the Unfinished Story. Now, in a lot more depth, there is the Kairos course. So the Kairos course is looking at the same aspect. It's got an unreached peoples group focus, and it's really great to go through that. But it's looking at more depth and different aspects of being on mission with God through unreached people groups. You know, God is bringing unreached people groups to our own cities and allowing us to have an impact with unreached peoples without even needing to leave our homes. And that's an exciting phase of history that we're actually in at the moment. So so there's that one.
Youth Kairos.
There's Youth Kairos is a youth version of the Kairos course. It's very interactive, and it's just really recognizing that you know, for Marion and I, we started as young people. We might look older now. Well, I imagine we look older now. But the reality is, God used us as young people, and He started this journey. And so Youth Kairos and the Unfinished Story for Youth is recognizing God is at work in the lives of young people, helping us, shaping our direction. And by taking right steps of obedience when we're young, we're able to actually make an amazing difference in this world. And so that's it's great to be able to do that. So so I mentioned the Simply Mobilizing website. The US has got got their own website, and I'm sure if you do a Google search, you'll find the US website. Canada's got their own website, and so that can put you in contact with the US and Canadian team here.
So there's teams all over the world giving these courses within local churches, just encouraging the body of Christ to get involved with what God's doing. Yeah, it's powerful, and it's just been wonderful to have time with both of you today here at the office, and just learning more about what is available, and your encouragement also for us to get involved more in different ways. It's just been really incredible. Thank you for blessing us with that. I want to ask you, we're almost at the end of our time together, but is there anything that you guys, I'd love to ask if there's anything that you learned that you wish that you would have known before going out to the field, maybe something that you would like to give. And if you've got another crazy missionary story, we can. I just wonder if there's any wisdom that you'd like to pass along that you would maybe wish that you would have received.
Cultural sensitivity is one thing that we just didn't get enough training, or we didn't understand the importance of really respecting the cultures that we're mixing with. So consequently, you know, my first season was just full of errors, of major mistakes. It was actually after my time in Papua New Guinea that I was introduced to the Kairos course, and for like you, I learned so much more going through the Kairos course, and I said, "Oh, I wish we had have done this before I ever started my missionary journey." And and so that was humbling to recognise that that even though I had been a missionary for 18 years by the time I did the Kairos course, I had made so many cultural misunderstandings. I had put myself in situations that I just hadn't thought about different perspectives. The word ethnocentric is we all tend to think about our own perspective as being the right perspective, but recognizing we need to recognize the value that's in other cultures, and not just ignore the differences, but to recognise there's so much beauty and so much reflection of God's goodness that comes through when we start to understand cultural diversity. And the conclusion I've come to is that God loves diversity, and it's only until we get to eternity that we're going to actually appreciate that we will not be able to understand God fully until every single culture of the world is actually together. And it's so it's exciting, an exciting journey, but something that takes a long way. Over the years, I've also learnt I need to be a lot more tactful. As a young person, I was not tactful at all, it's great to have others to be able to follow and to see how God equips others with wisdom and tact, and it's just great to just be a little less vocal, and to be, I think as I look back, I think there's times that I should have been less vocal and more contemplated, more reflective, more observing, rather than just expressing my point of view.
That's good. Good advice.
I think one of the things that I really value and see the value of more now is the whole area of language. When you're going into another language group, the importance of learning, and sometimes it depends on your role. It's easy to just take the easy road and just stay in the language that you know, especially if you can get by with it. But to be able to actually speak to people in their own language just gives so much more opportunity, and then it enriches your life, by being able to communicate with the people. I remember being in West Africa, and a lot of French spoken up there, and I had no French. Now, I was only there for a couple of months, so of course I wasn't going to be learning any French, but it really impacted me how I couldn't talk to the people that I was working with because I didn't have any French, let alone their own heart language. And so it really prepared me even more for when we went to Bolivia, specifically to learn Spanish. But I had that desire by then, I must learn Spanish as well, and not just leave it for Geof. And it definitely made a big difference.
And I must say, it's very humbling when our children refuse to talk to us in Spanish because Mum and Dad, you can't speak Spanish good at all. Why would we waste our time trying to have a conversation with you in Spanish? It just...
I'm glad our Spanish friends don't do that.
They're very gracious.
Yes, they are. Yes.
Well, I don't know if you have any other questions, Greg.
Oh, now I think you guys have just done a wonderful job sharing with us, and we've learned a lot from you. And so, yeah,
We've enjoyed sharing with you guys.
Yep, it's been lovely being here with you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being with us and for reaching out, for coming by today, being with us here at Globe. And it's just been a pleasure. It's been an honor to have time with you. And thank you so much for being with us, really, and sharing with us.
It's lovely to be here, and I want to thank you for having us here and just having the opportunity of journeying with you.
Would there be any information that we could put on our link to this site for you guys? As far, I don't know if you receive support through Simply Mobilizing, or how you guys are supported as your missionaries, right? Yep. Yourselves. So it's not Globe Missionaries, but you're Simply Mobilizing missionaries. So
we're a complex scenario. We actually have a partnership agreement with Pioneers. So we are officially Pioneers Missionaries, seconded to a agency, World Outreach International, and so we've got an agreement with them that we can focus full time on Simply Mobilizing, and so Pioneers basically handles our finances, and so any gifts are best sent through Pioneers, whether it be the US office, Canadian office, or Australian office.
do you have a personal website or anything? Okay, just Simply Mobilizing is where people can find you?
Yep.
Okay, wonderful. All right, well, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you, Greg, too.
Thank you. Yeah. Next time I see you, I'll be sure and bring my toothbrush.
Wise man.
Thank you guys so much for listening to Crazy Missionary Stories. If you are listening on Spotify, don't forget to follow us and give us a 5-star review. If you're on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe, and of course, share it with your friends. Thank you guys for listening. See you next time.